everyone, it's Karis. I turned 20 years old today, which is absolutely crazy. I honestly can't believe it. And I really wanted to make a video because last year for my 19th, I showed you all 19 books that summed up my reading life so far. And I didn't want to do the same thing again because it would just be like one more book than last year. So this year, I thought that I would show you 20 books that I want to read in my 20s. So obviously these aren't the only 20 books that I'm going to read in my 20s, but these are books that have been on my TBR for what feels like absolutely ages. A lot of them are books that are constantly being listed as things that everyone should read at least once. And all of them are just, you know, those sort of books that you mean to read, but they're never at the top of your TBR, so you never get round to them. They're all those sorts of books. So I thought I would show you 20 of them that I'm definitely going to read before I turn 30, which I think is a really realistic goal because 10 years, I can read a lot of books in that amount of time. So the first thing that I've got here is To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee, which a lot of you will probably be shocked to find that I still haven't read yet. This just seems to be one of those books that everyone seems to read at school, but I never studied it. I did The Crucible and Of Mice and Men instead, and I've just never got round to reading it, but I've got this really pretty edition, so I definitely want to get round to it at some point. Next here, I've got The Tenant of Wildfell Hall by Anne Bronte, which is in this bind-up edition. I just really wanted to try a book by Anne Bronte because I've read both Emily and Charlotte Bronte's works before, but never anything by Anne, and one of my lecturers really likes this book, I think, so hopefully it will be good. Next is Little Women by Louisa May Alcott, which I've got in this beautiful Puffin in Bloom edition, and I just really want to read this one because it's a children's classic which I just never got round to when I was younger. I feel like I know the story of it. I feel I must have dipped in and out of it at various times when I was younger, but I've definitely never read the book all the way through, and now that I've got this really pretty edition of it, there's no excuse to get round to it. Next is The Little Prince, and I've forgotten the author's name, but I'll put a picture of it up somewhere and you'll be able to see it on there. I constantly see this book being talked about as everyone's favourite from their childhood, and I just really want to see what it's all about because I never read it when I was younger and I definitely feel like I'm missing out on something. At number 5 is a series, and that is the Mortal Instruments series by Cassandra Clare. I feel like the only person on the planet who hasn't read this series yet. I did read book 1 about 3 years ago, so I really can't remember anything about it, and I just really want to try it out and see if I would enjoy the world as much as everyone else on BookTube does. Next is The Giver by Lois Lowry. This is another children's classic that everyone seems to have read and loved, but I haven't. When the film came out, I was going to buy it and read it then because I thought it sounded really interesting from like the trailers and stuff, but I never got round to it, so I really want to do it eventually. Number 7 is The Help by Catherine Stockett. I watched the film at the beginning of this year with one of my friends and I really enjoyed it, and I just really like to read the book because normally I do read the book before watching the film, but I just didn't this time. And I would just like to see if I enjoy the book as much as the film. Next is Shadow of the Wind by Carlos Ruiz Zafón, and I just think this book sounds so amazing. It's a book about books and I always love things like that. The only reason why I haven't bought it and read it yet is because I'm collecting the Penguin Drop Caps collection and it's Z in the collection, and I've been collecting it in alphabetical order. So if I already owned it, I definitely think I would have read it by now, but I'm just being really stubborn and waiting until I get that edition of it. So hopefully at some point I will get that book and be able to read it because it's probably one of the ones that I'm most excited about. Next is Just Any Book by Agatha Christie. I've been reading a lot more mystery and thriller books recently, and I just really want to try an Agatha Christie book because she is always said to be one of the most famous crime and mystery writers that there is. But I don't know which one to start with, so if you've read any Agatha Christie before, let me know in the comments which one you think is a good place to start with her books. Next is The Lovely Bones by Alice Sebold. This film was one of my absolute favourites around the time it came out. I bought the book right back when the film was out, which is why it's in this movie edition, and I still haven't got round to it, so it definitely deserves a place on this list. At number 11 is Everything is Illuminated by Jonathan Safran Foer. I only recently bought this from a charity shop, but before that I just heard so many things about it. Again, it's one of those ones that people say you should definitely read, and it definitely sounds like something that I would enjoy. Next is A Tale for the Time Being by Ruth Ezeki. I had this book a couple of Christmases ago, but I still haven't got round to it. This is set in Japan, and I'm really interested in reading about cultures that I haven't really read about that much, and I don't think I've ever read anything set in Japan. At number 13 is The Hobbit by J.R.R. Tolkien. I've never read any Tolkien before, which shocks quite a lot of people. and I don't really think The Lord of the Rings would be my thing, and I feel like The Hobbit is more of an easier starting place because it's a children's book, so I would like to read this one eventually. Not sure when, but I thought it definitely deserved a place on the list. Next is Gone Girl by Gillian Flynn, and I've been meaning to read this ever since the film came out because I really wanted to go and see the film, which I still haven't seen because I don't see the point of watching it and then reading it because I feel like it would definitely spoil the book for me. My housemate also read this book a few months ago and she's been bugging me about getting onto it ever since, so Laura, I will definitely be reading this book. Out of all of these books, this is the one that I want to get to first so we can finally watch the film. Next is The Impossible Knife of Memory by Laurie Halse Anderson. I read Speak by Laurie Halse Anderson a few years ago and it's still one of my absolute favourite books, and I just really want to try some of her other work. The only reason why I haven't read this one yet is because I can never seem to find it in the shops in the UK, and for some reason her books seem to be more expensive on Amazon and Book Depository than a lot of other books are. They don't really seem to have any discount on them. So I just haven't got around to buying it yet and I can't find it in any libraries, but when I do find it I will definitely read it because it sounds really good and I just loved Laurie Halse Anderson's writing. Next is The Bronze Horseman by Paulina Simons, and I'm not sure why I haven't read this one yet either. It's set in World War II, so I definitely think it will be something that I enjoy because I am really interested in reading books set in that time period, and I try to make a conscious effort to buy and read a lot of books that I hear about that are set in that time period, but for some reason I just haven't got around to picking this one up yet. I don't know if it's because it looks so big and intimidating, but I definitely want to read it eventually because I'm sure I will love it. At number 17 is The 13th Tale by Diane Setterfield. I again watched the TV adaptation of this when it was on a few years ago and I absolutely loved it, so I bought the book and never got around to reading it. I can't really remember what it's about now though, so I think that will be good going into the book not really remembering or knowing what it's about because then it will be completely fresh and new to me. At number 18 is Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. I read my first ever Jane Austen book, which was Emma, earlier this year and I really enjoyed it, and I feel that Pride and Prejudice is just one of those ones that I have to read eventually, so it deserved its place on this list. Also, I have this really nice edition of it, so it would be rude not to read this one at some point. At number 19 is The Miniaturist by Jessie Burton. Like most of these books, I've been meaning to read it forever, since it came out basically, and I've never got round to it, and I just really want to. I don't know what else I can say, to be honest. And finally, at number 20 is The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern, which I still have the price sticker on if you ignore that. This is another one that I've owned for absolutely ages but haven't picked up yet. I think the reason I haven't read a lot of these is because they're more adult books and I always seem to lean towards YA, but I'm going to try and change that because a lot of people say that they absolutely love this book and it's like one of their favourites, so I just need to pick it up. And also, this one's got black pages, which I think is really cool. So those were 20 books that I'm going to read in my 20s. Hopefully I'll get around to them. Don't know if I'll still have this YouTube channel in 10 years to update you all, but hopefully you'll see these in wrap-ups at some point in the future. Let me know in the comments some books that you've had on your TBRs for absolutely ages and you know you want to read eventually, but you just haven't got round to it yet. Other than that, that is it for today's video. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you all have a great day and I will see you again next time. Bye!